This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello and a very happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, the Pilgrims, of course, are synonymous with Thanksgiving. You can't think of one without the other. But these brave men and women deserve to be remembered for so much more. Their covenant and form of self-government shaped America's Constitution and entire government. And as Paul Strand reports, they believed religious freedom and liberty were worth dying for.
2020 is the 400th anniversary of the founding of Plymouth. I think that's a huge milestone. It's a great milestone in human history.
Christian historian Jerry Newcomb's documentary, The Pilgrims, looks at how those 51 pilgrims not only survived their first Massachusetts winter, but went on to influence their future nation.
This small group casts a very large shadow.
From the documentary.
Did you know that today 10% of the population of the United States are Mayflower descendants? 30 million people from 51.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
In those days, England demanded all citizens belong to the Church of England and conform to its beliefs or face harsh punishment.
You will worship as they say you worship. And so to do this illegally meant you could be arrested.
Or even put to death. So the Pilgrims fled.
They just wanted to worship Jesus in the purity of the gospel, and the king wouldn't let them do that. He was ruling it over their conscience. That's why they fled.
They'd come to believe in radical ideas they found in the Bible, like they had rights given by God, and that he wanted them to be free, to govern themselves from within.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible.
And after unexpected winds blew them off course away from any governing authority, they made a covenant between God and man for a new form of government.
The Pilgrims gave us the Mayflower Compact, which was an agreement for self-government under God, which was really the first step in the creation, ultimately, of the Declaration of Independence and of the U.S. Constitution.
It was a polarity change in world government. Instead of top-down, ruled by these kings that keep getting more and more powerful, it's bottom-up. It's the people themselves deciding what laws they're going to pass and agreeing to submit to them.
It made freedom the cornerstone of America, as shown by the words on the Liberty Bell.
It says, proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof.
Some students are wrongly taught the Pilgrims stole from the Indians and treated them horribly. The record shows the opposite was true.
The Pilgrims were kind to the Indians. They showed them love. They showed them compassion. They showed them the godly way to live.
They did take some buried corn in cold New England, but only because they were literally starving.
And they even said, when they later came into contact with the Native Americans, they said, find out whose corn that is so we may repay them.
They didn't steal land in Plymouth. It had been abandoned by the Indians.
There was a plague that occurred 3 years before the voyage of the Mayflower, and it wiped out about 95% of the Indians in that particular region.
They wouldn't come back on it because of the plague. The Pilgrims took land nobody wanted.
And they showed the Indians they'd treat them as equals.
There was even a situation where a Pilgrim killed an Indian. The Pilgrim was put on trial.
The Indians expected
a mock trial, go through the motions, get it over with, let them go. After all they did was kill an Indian.
And that's not what happened. They found the Pilgrim guilty, and he was hanged for murder.
Everybody was equal under the law. Now the Indians could trust the Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims showed future Americans a God-blessed cause was something worth suffering for, even dying for. The Mayflower's Captain Jones offered to rescue them from the first deadly winter they faced.
Half their men would have died. This is not what they signed up for at all. And Jones says, anybody who wants to come back to England with me, I will take them. Not one of them went.
The Pilgrims made living by the Bible and loving it a very American habit.
And their textbook was the Bible.
The Bible was the key book for the first 200 years.
The Founding Fathers brought America an enlightened revolution.
And above all, they quoted the Bible, 4 times more than they quoted any human author.
It gave them the go-ahead to throw off Britain's ungodly tyranny.
They recognize that there is a higher law, the law of God, and that God presides over the affairs of nations.
You are to obey the lawful authorities, but if the lawful authorities take too much authority unto themselves and they violate God's laws, then obedience to God means resistance to tyrants.
So the Pilgrims who'd fled England for their freedom laid the foundations that shaped America and eventually its freedom. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
All fascinating. Well, still ahead, we'll introduce you to the person who helped the Pilgrims survive one of the first Thanksgivings. Welcome back and happy Thanksgiving. Well, the winter of 1620 was so brutal, half of the Pilgrims didn't survive, and those who did nearly died of starvation. They owed their lives to a Native American who helped turn things around. Here's that story.
Thy help cometh from the Lord, who keepeth Israel. The Lord of Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. He shall become thy shade upon thy right hand. He shall protect thy incomings and outgoings.
In the winter of 1620, the Pilgrims at Plymouth are struggling to survive. The long journey to America has taken a heavy toll on the weary travelers. They were not equipped to deal with the many challenges in the New World, and nearly half perished in the early days of their journey. In the midst of their struggle, they humbled themselves and turned their hearts to God, praying for His mercy and providence to protect them and establish their community.
Dear Lord, find us in the wilderness.
Their prayers would be answered through a series of divine and tragic events that occurred years earlier in the life of a young native boy named Tisquantum. It was the early 1600s in the area that would soon be called Massachusetts. Tisquantum and his tribe were curious about the men from across the ocean who would visit their shoreline from time to time. During one of those visits, an English sailor, Thomas Hunt, not satisfied with his income and looking for dishonest gain, came to the region looking for opportunities. Hunt broke trust with the tribes and took Tisquantum and 23 other natives aboard his ship. The natives were forced into the ship's hull and taken across the ocean to Spain to be sold into slavery. Distrust grew in Tisquantum's heart during his travel across the sea, and he wondered why the Great Spirit would allow him to be so mistreated. After a long journey, they finally arrived in Spain. Tisquantum did not know what his future would hold and wondered if he would ever see home again. Upon landing in Spain, the slave traders sold several natives. But Tisquantum was set free by a group of Spanish friars who disrupted the event before Tisquantum's sale. The friars took him in, and he lived among them. He learned how to speak Spanish and about their Christian faith, about the one true God of the Bible and His Son Jesus. They taught him their self-sustaining lifestyle, planting and harvesting crops. Tisquantum grew to love and trust the monks, and life was good with them. But his desire to return home to his people, his tribe, never left him. He longed for the familiar places, the family and friends from whom he had been so violently taken. He prayed to God that somehow, someday, he would be able to return to his tribe. God heard his prayers. The friars devised a plan to get Tisquantum back to his homeland and to his beloved tribe. It would not be easy, and it would take several years, but their plan was put into action. He made his way to England, where he lived with and worked for an English businessman named John Slaney. Slaney and his Newfoundland company were looking for opportunities to expand trade with the New England natives. Tisquantum had learned how to speak English fluently and would earn his way back to America, working for the company as a translator. Hope sprung up in Tisquantum as he believed he would soon be home with his tribe. He remained in England for a few more years, but Tisquantum's hope never died. He'd been places that few in his tribe could even imagine, and he longed to tell them about all that he'd done and seen. Finally, in 1619, everything was in place. Once more, he sailed across the ocean. This time, his destination was home. With his feet finally back on familiar soil, Tisquantum ran towards his village, excited to be reunited with his loved ones. His heart was crushed by what he discovered. Plague had ravaged his people only months earlier, and everyone had died. Of his tribe, only Tisquantum remained. Confused and alone, he pondered his existence, his purpose. Why had he endured the years of struggle and false hope in strange lands? Why did he make it all the way home, only to find such devastation? Thoughts of death were not far from him. He was accepted into the neighboring Wampanoag tribe, but in his heart, he knew he did not belong. Word came to Tisquantum that a group of European settlers had set up their camp on the very site of his former village. They were English, Pilgrims. He spoke their language and knew their ways. He saw how they struggled to survive, how they prayed to Jesus for help, for hope. His heart went out to them, and he longed to help them. With the blessing of the Wampanoag chief, Tisquantum made his presence known. The Pilgrims were filled with fear at the sight of him. So far, relations with the native tribes had not been easy, and tensions were high. As Tisquantum neared the entrance of the village, he raised his voice and spoke in perfect English.
My name is Tisquantum, and this is Big Bear. We mean you no harm.
The Pilgrims were amazed at the sight and sound of him. They welcomed him in, and he made his home with them. In the spring, Tisquantum taught the Pilgrims what he had learned from his own tribe and his time with the friars in Spain, how to plant crops and fertilize seeds. He was their interpreter and helped make peace with the Wampanoag and other tribes in the area. Before long, he was more at home with the settlers than he was anywhere else. He lived with them and in many ways became one of them. In the fall of 1621, the harvest was abundant. The Pilgrims were thriving. God had answered their fervent prayers through Tisquantum, and in the process, healed his broken heart. In November of that year, the Pilgrim leaders held a great feast, giving thanks to God for providing for their needs. William Bradford, the leader of the Pilgrims, asked Tisquantum to invite the Wampanoag tribe to the Thanksgiving celebration. They came and joined the party for 3 days, and there was peace and joy in the region.
Brothers and sisters, we gather today with thankfulness in our hearts. The Lord in His mercy has planted us and established us here. We have seen times of adversity and mourning and scarcity, but now the Lord shows us a time of harvest and plenty. And we are thankful for Squanto, who has joined us in our pilgrimage here to worship God freely. His path has not been easy, but the Lord was with him and sustained him and brought him to this place before us. And he has been an answer to our prayers here, that the Lord would provide for us, provide a way by his mighty hand. And the hand of God is with you and has never forsaken you. The psalmist tells us, "Give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, and his mercy endures forever." And today, with our friends and our families and our neighbors, we will declare this a great day of thanksgiving, and we will celebrate, and we will praise the Lord for his mercy to us and his presence with us. Amen.
Without Tisquantum's help, the Pilgrims may not have survived those early brutal years. Tisquantum put his faith in the God of the Bible and lived with the Pilgrims until his death. He became known as Squanto, and his legend lives on today in the story of the first Thanksgiving, the Native American man whom God used to answer a desperate prayer from a desperate people.
Coming up, we explore the faith-filled history of America's early Thanksgiving holiday celebrations. Stay with us. It's the time of year when we give thanks to God for the founding of our nation. But as Paul Strand explains, not all Americans are aware of our holy history.
Most kids in most public schools are no longer being taught what a rich, godly heritage this nation has. God and prayer have been thrown out of their schools, and with it the knowledge that early settlers made covenant with God, and this allied the country with him. Much of this early heritage started with the Pilgrims right here in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Give you an idea where
On a trip down the East Coast, this group of pastors and students from Spokane, Washington, came to reclaim that lost education for themselves and their children.
Getting all of this information, revelation, and the heart of God into the next generation.
Most of them, if they've been through public school, and even a lot in Christian schools, they don't know their history as far as how our nation was founded.
Like the Pilgrims didn't just come here to escape religious persecution, but to set up a new type of government. In an age of absolute monarchs who ruled like God, the Pilgrims believed the real God made all humans equal. So any leader should be elected by the community and should be servants of the people, not lords over them.
But they have another king, a heavenly king, King Jesus, and that's who they follow.
Pilgrim reenactor Leo Martin led this group around Plymouth.
What you're not learning is that we are a Christian nation founded on Christian principles, and we tell that story. We don't tell it only because I'm a Christian. We tell it because it's a fact.
Some today are taught Pilgrims were stern control freaks, clamping their religion down on everyone. But they knew God as the God of liberty, who wanted men free in Christ. They understood the only way to stay free was by self-governing, each person following the moral code and virtues laid out in the Bible. When they sailed from England, they knew well they could die from the New World's harsh winters or Indian arrows, but they still came. And half their number died the first winter.
They literally put everything on the line for what they believed and were willing to lose their life, half of them, for future generations. They believed it so much.
Pastor Trevor's oldest daughter was radically changed on a previous trip where she learned all this and told her parents,
"It's up to me, it's up to our generation to carry the baton, to champion truth, to live and to be a voice."
I have people say to me all the time, "I'm just one person. I listen to you. What can I do?" One person can't do anything. 51 people started our country. One person can do something.
The Pilgrims weren't colorless and dour, as some teach, because they believed the joy of the Lord was their strength, and they were to be thankful no matter their circumstances. They're famous for Thanksgiving Day, but Martin has a problem identifying that as a specific day.
Which one do I pick? The Pilgrims thank God for everything.
But little's taught of what made them so thankful, of the miracles and moments where God's hand guided and saved. They needed plowed fields their first year because they had no plows. Right where the Pilgrims landed were fields plowed by the Patuxet tribe that had been wiped out in a plague.
The Indians did not want the land. They would not come back on it because of the plague.
Squanto was a friend of nearby Indian chief Massasoit and was declared a special gift from God by the Pilgrims, who testified they couldn't have survived without him. He'd learned English in Europe.
He became the interpreter between the Pilgrims and the Indians. That's the only way they could communicate.
When the Pilgrims' foreign crops wouldn't grow in Plymouth, Squanto taught them to plant corn and fertilize it with fish from the local river. As Plymouth rain fell on this group of pastors and students, it recalled a drought that struck a couple of years after the Pilgrims landed. They held a very public fast and prayer time till God sent a miraculous rain right over them that saved the crops. That led a local chief to Christ, along with much of his tribe. Incidents and interventions like these are sprinkled throughout America's history, but so little of it is known anymore to the younger generations who desperately need this knowledge if they're to carry the baton into the future so this can remain one nation under God. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Thank you, Paul. Well, up next, we're exploring how gratitude can change your brain. Stay tuned. And we're back with a Thanksgiving reminder. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 tells us to give thanks in every situation. And medical research shows when our brain focuses on gratitude, levels of stress hormones drop, which leads to improved health. If you haven't been in the habit of practicing gratitude, have no fear. Doctors say it's never too late to start.
There is a big word that we use called neuroplasticity. So in layman's terms, what it means is that our brain can actually change over time based on our experiences.
And that's it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day and a very happy Thanksgiving from all of us here at CBN. God bless you.